Two legends in basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience. This is the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast.
Gentlemen, good to see you. I'm going to start today's show, the Goodman, Ryan, and Tanguay podcast, with a movie trailer. Drama, controversy looms over the NBA. Can Philly Ben and his teammates find love? Will Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard kiss and make up? All coming up on the Goodman and Ryan pod with Tanguay podcast. What the hell's going on with this league? I mean, I'm going to start with Bob, because if I was Bob, I'd be pretty pissed off. I mean, my God, the headlines are one guy won't play with the team and Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis are getting in a fight on a bench. I mean, this really is soap opera stuff, Bob.
Well, the first one is news. The second one, it's news. It's not. You really honestly think it's a big deal that it's lingering, or that it's a problem for the Lakers?
Well, I do. Well, here's my thing. Is my concern about the league this year is that we all think it's the Lakers and the Nets. And I think so far that these two organizations have underachieved. I mean, we've said they're going to do great things, and they have not. They have not. Oh. So, yeah, when I see Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard act like a couple of fools, yeah, I think it's kind of a big deal.
No, it's because in my now, you have to understand, I put my cards on the table here. You're talking to the person, my least favorite player in the NBA in the last 5 years, because that would include Chris Webber if it were 10, who has squandered a talent. And I don't care how many defensive talent honors he's gotten, rebound titles. He ought to be better with that body. He should, and he's not stupid, but he's not wired properly. Anyway, it's Dwight Howard involved, so I don't take it seriously. I'm serious. I don't care. So no. But the other thing is much more interesting to me.
Well, let's get to let's get Goody's feeling on the Lakers. Then we'll get to the Simmons.
Yeah, all right. No, the Lakers. No, the Lakers. They're a lab experiment. We all know that.
Yeah.
And
I'm with you, Bob. I don't think it's a big deal.
For 18.
Yeah.
All right. He won't go for 18 for a while. And again, all right, go ahead. Go, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right with you with Dwight Howard. So to me, it's almost like at some point, when do you just cut ties? And the only place he's ever won anything, and I said this when he came into the league, I really did. I said the only time Dwight Howard is going to win anything is if he plays with LeBron James. Now, can LeBron at 37 carry Dwight Howard anymore? Probably not. I think you sever ties with Dwight Howard, because if you've got something in game one or whatever it was, what's it going to be like throughout the season? Anthony Davis is about as easy of a dude as there is to get along with. You know, the only knock you can ever make on Anthony Davis is, number one, he's injury prone. Number two, and it worked out for him, he listened to his agent to be forced out of New Orleans, and everybody in New Orleans probably hates him because of it, but he got what he wanted. He went to a contender. So I have no problem with Anthony Davis. My problem is with Dwight Howard, and I don't think it's a big deal at all. The bigger deal, and we should get into this, is can this aging Lakers team actually make a run, and is Russell Westbrook the right guy to play with LeBron James and Anthony Davis?
And also right now they've got some injuries. Their depth has been, is not there where they assume there will be, but this was a team that it was going to take time to mesh to start with. I mean, and as Ime Udoka pointed out with regard to not just the Celtics, but some of the other strange results that we've seen early in the season, used to be you had 7 or 8 exhibition games to work things out. Back in the old days, when they were barnstorming around Maine and Red Auerbach was driving guys crazy, going 80 and a 50, or whatever he was doing, they played 17 or 18. I mean, that's just the whole. Wow. So now they've gone too far with the exhibition thing, in terms of cutting it back.
The people of Rumford, Maine, a town that Bob Ryan knows well, are still abuzz about the fact that Easy Ed McCauley and Bob Cousy went to communion at St. John's Church after playing at the Rumford Armory. I kid you not.
Oh, I don't doubt it. That's great.
I kid you not.
That's wonderful.
It was unbelievable. I mean, there's still a buzz about it up there.
Guys used to like have a lottery who had to ride with Red. Nobody wanted to ride with Red. It was a terrible driver. But they were driving around in station wagons, barnstorming all over New England, right?
Oh, yeah.
Rumford.
Easy Ed and Bob Cousy.
Okay.
Okay, so Now we get on to Simmons, and I want to tread lightly with this one because, and I want to say off the top, we all have touched, I assume, I can only speak for myself. My family has been touched by mental illness. Mental illness, emotional challenges are no joke. And they are coming to the forefront in athletics. Right now, Ben Simmons, who we know does not want to play in Philadelphia, has said, Jeff, I need to go away. He's having emotional issues because of the emotional situation. My God, get help, kid. I do. But at the same time, how do you view this?
Yeah, he said he's got a back issue as well. So I think he just wants to collect his money at this point. And I think it's just kind of a deal between him and Daryl Morey at this point, right? Rich Paul and Ben Simmons versus Daryl Morey. And Daryl Morey has said, listen, I don't expect this thing to resolve itself quickly. And I've been told sources close to that situation say, hey, Daryl Morey will let Ben Simmons rot if he has to prove a point. And to me, it's stupidity because you're going to waste a year potentially of healthy Joel Embiid. You do not know how many years you're going to get of healthy Joel Embiid. And you're going to waste a year. You got Tobias Harris, you got Joel. Why not? Listen, Ben Simmons' stock is not going to go up sitting on the bench or wherever he's going to be. It won't be on the bench. So to me, you trade him now. You should have traded him months ago. The longer this goes, the less you're going to get for Ben Simmons and the chances of making a run in the East, which the Sixers have a chance to do. If they get something decent that fits for Ben Simmons, there's no reason Philadelphia can't make a run through the East. Milwaukee's not that good, guys. We know that. They're good, but they've got a star in Giannis. I'll put Joel Embiid, a healthy Joel Embiid, up against Giannis. They're not that different in terms of talent, and it depends on what you can get in return for Ben Simmons, but you got to get something.
Well, I've felt from the beginning, as Jeff well knows, Gary, that the question, my overriding question for the entire offseason was, what is Ben Simmons's market value, given the distinctly intriguing, rare, unprecedented nature of his game? We've never seen a player, say it again, of stature, of consequence, who was so monumentally, who was so lopsided. He has these monumental, great skills, and he has this whopping hole in his soul here about the shooting thing that is just astonishing. And it cost the team a playoff series. Okay, and anybody in the league should have stepped back and seen that when you get to when the games really matter, and you have a guy that not only can't but suddenly won't even make a layup or passes up an open dunk that he should have made, and can shoot 34% from the free throw line. Now, we basketball fans know all this. Well, so what's the market value? And Daryl Morey apparently was pie in the sky, wanted stuff, and so he's going to have to take 30 cents on the dollar, and that's fine. Okay, no.
Yeah, and he probably says, "I'm not going to do that." What's the point?
But Jeff is right. He's blown it already. He's already blown it. And he's going to get, nobody's going to give him more. The offers are going to be inferior, completely more. Now, about the other thing, the mental health issue. It is so delicate. We are living in an era when we are all being educated or reminded that athletes are human beings too. And prominent athletes have come forth to, and both in this league and of course the Simone Biles being Exhibit A and all that. And we must respect that. And I think we all totally understand that. That said, and here's where you have to be very, 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 very careful. We also are not stupid, and we've seen how human nature can be. It is conceivable. I am not saying that Ben Simmons is doing this, but it is conceivable that people will start playing the mental health card as a means of explaining away some things. In his case, so I don't know. Suddenly that enters into it. That's the issue. Oh, okay. If it is all right. But don't we have a right to be suspicious about people in the future? I'm sorry. And him particularly, given that we're talking the fact that he's had X years, how many years? 4 or 5 to fix himself, and he apparently refuses to do it. Apparently, right?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
we have to assume the conversations have been held.
Yeah.
You got to get in the gym. You got to go in the summer. You got to come back. You got to shoot the ball.
Yeah, he just doesn't seen him shoot the ball from three in shoot arounds and things of that nature. But again, you got to do it in games, and he hasn't done it. And it's just this whole thing. Ultimately, Ben Simmons needs a fresh start. Daryl Morey, like you said, maybe he gets 50 cents in the dollar today. It's only going to go down from there. So just make the move fairly soon, Daryl Morey. I think it's best for both sides.
Would you want him on your team, Bob?
No, I've said that. No, I just think because
after watching Marcus Smart run this team for the first 3 games, you wouldn't rather have Ben Simmons. If I told you get Ben Simmons for Marcus Smart, Aaron Nesmith, and a first-round pick, which the numbers probably don't work, but you wouldn't do that trade? You don't want him in your team for anything.
I don't want him, period. I don't want to put up with this nonsense. And I think it is nonsense.
This team is mediocrity.
Yeah.
This Celtics team is mediocrity. Ben Simmons, I'm not saying it would work, but I'm saying it would be worth the risk. I would do that trade.
Jeff, Bob, I'm curious. I understand where Jeff is coming from, because it's like 30 cents, 20 cents, 10 cents on the dollar. If you are able to get him for a steal, I'm curious. Morey's obviously not going to do it.
Right.
But I mean, if you
may have no choice eventually. If
you get him, like if you got, let's just play it out. I mean, it's probably not going to happen, Bob, but let's just play it out. And you got him for a steal, and he comes here. I mean, he likes to pass the ball. He could actually probably play better with Tatum than Brown or Smart plays better with Tatum.
I'll put it this way. All right, if that's fine, I will do the same thing I do in the voting booth at times, because I literally do this, and then I done this, and I did this in the presidential election in 2016, trust me, and I did it, and I would do that metaphorically speaking. Okay, yes. I'll take them, but I don't have to like them.
If people are listening on the podcast, Bob is holding his nose while he's pushing the lever. Just if people aren't seeing the wonderful visual right now of Bob Bryant. Okay, so speaking of the voting booth, Bob Ryan, an esteemed voter of the 75th anniversary team. Bob, there's a couple names on here, and of course,
let's have a discussion.
I mean, did you vote for Wes Unseld, Nate Thurman, or Sam Jones?
Yes, and yes, without hesitation.
Those are the only 3 names on there that I went, how come? I mean, you saw him play. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I mean, I did not see them play in person.
Wes Unseld, well, I watched his whole career, of course, and go back to him at Louisville. Anyway, Wes Unseld was a phenomenon. Wes Unseld, one of the greatest rebounders in the history of basketball, and one of the 2 or 3 greatest outlet basketball in an era when that mattered. We have one outlet passer left in basketball now. It's Kevin Love. He's the only guy that throws the outlet pass the way these guys used to throw the outlet pass, because nobody thinks about it. Okay, Wes Unseld was a great rebounder. Was a great player. Period. He's one of the greatest players, and it's just no brainer. He's a no brainer. Nate Thurman is the most underrated big man in history, because he played at the same era of overlapped with Russell and Wilt and Kareem, all of them. Ask Kareem about him. Kareem once said he was the hardest guy he played. And back in the early 70s, when Kareem was at his youthful peak. Nate Thurman is a great player. And he also he started out as a forward and again got moved to his rightful position when Wilt was traded. And he's a great player. I mean, and a great offensive player, just a great player, great defensive player, great rebounder. He's fine. And Sam, if I gave you the scouting report on Sam Jones, you didn't know who this guy was. I told you you could get here's your draft. You're drafting, and we got a kid who's 6'4". He's quick. He's got an enormously amazing first step to the basket. He's a deadly shooter, mid-range shooter. Oh, by the way, he uses the glass better than anybody in history. He can guard, and he's got the classic ice water in his veins. He's oblivious to pressure. It doesn't bother him the least. He'll take any shot and under pressure. I think you'd want this guy in his team. Sam Jones, the only reason he doesn't have bigger stats is he sat on a bench behind Bill Sharman, which would never happen today, by the way. he and Casey Jones sat there patiently behind Cousy and Jarman for like 3 years before they got to start. And so he'd have more stats to pad his resume. And once he got to play, go look and see what he did. No, Sam Jones is a no-brainer. They're all no-brainers.
So who's your snub, Bob? Give me one guy. Give me your one guy that you were like, they absolutely got screwed in this thing.
Okay, I voted. There were 6 guys I voted for that didn't.
But I want your one. I want to start with your one guy that you were just like beyond upset about, and I want to hear the Bob Ryan rant of that guy. How the hell could they have left that guy off?
Knowing that well, it's a tough one. Okay, here are the 8 guys: Dantley, King, Issel, Lanier, McGrady, Mullen, Klay Thompson, and Pau Gasol. Of all those,
I'm a Mullen guy too, man. I love Mullen.
Of all those guys, I think the guy that people should have understood his peak value was Bernard King.
Oof, boy, hard to argue.
Yeah, talk to Max, and of
Bernard
course
King.
you can. Max is in our podcast family. Talk to Max about Bernard King.
In the middle, he was the greatest offensive force in basketball for a couple of years, back in 84, 85, 86. He was the greatest force before Michael, became Michael. Michael was on his training wheels, Bernard King was the man, unstoppable.
So Thurman ahead of Lanier.
He's the only guy, and I voted for Lanier. Yeah, I voted for Lanier. I voted for both of them. Bernard King's the only guy ever scored 20 points a game without a medial collateral ligament, by the way, just so you know. The guy that I knew he wasn't going to make it, and I'm obsessed with him because I just love him, and that's Pau Gasol, and I just think he's totally unappreciated, but I knew he wasn't going to make it. I assumed he wouldn't make it. I'll tell you another guy that is not getting enough. Dan Issel was a scoring machine, a machine.
Yeah,
he was just born to score. So there's a couple.
The Klay Thompson argument, Gary, like a lot of these guys, they're young, right? They're young that are arguing right now that are saying, well, we haven't seen some of these older guys that Bob saw. So it's really hard. They're just saying, well, we don't know who the hell Adrian Dantley is or Dan Issel is or Spencer Haywood or Bernard King. They never, like, I saw Bernard King. Bernard King, to me, I'd have him on there ahead of Klay Thompson.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Both of them have had their injury issues. Bernard King did it longer at this point than Klay Thompson did. I mean, he averaged he was, like Bob said, he was the best scorer. When I was probably in high school, Bernard King was the best scorer in the NBA at that point. Unstoppable.
Quickest release, Gary, quickest release on the box you ever see. I called him Mazeroski. The ball barely touched his hand. I got to tell you about Bernard King's story. This is gospel. Game 1, 1984 at the Silver Dome, Hubie Brown called Bernard King's number 13 consecutive times to start the game. It was called Power Right, and out of which he got 22 of the conceivable 26 points. Okay? That's how good Bernard King was. And offensive, he was special. Now, he also was maybe the greatest, one of the handful of greatest players ever played in the Boston shootout, by the way. He was Bernard, greatest forward ever played. He's the greatest forward. Doc was the best guard, and Bernard King was the best forward that ever played, and Patrick Ewing was the best center. But anyway, Bernard King was an extraordinary player who he was also, he had, in the beginning, he had an alcohol issue. He almost messed up his entire career. He got himself straightened out, thank God. And then he became the, anyway, dude, great. By the way, in terms of Klay Thompson, Jeff and Gary, I must admit that one of my things I tried to do as a voter was not be completely subservient to the older, this 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s that I knew. And that's one reason why I was determined. I voted for Damian Lillard, and I know a lot of people question that one.
You voted for Lillard?
Yes. And that was my last pick.
I'm shocked.
That was my 75th. That was my 75th choice in the end. I bumped Bill Sharman and Lenny Wilkins
Wow.
in favor of Damian Lillard, more or less. It couldn't. That's 2 for 1. But I wanted to be fair, and Klay Thompson kind of falls into that category.
Lillard's going to be on there.
Remember who's
Bob.
the
You made
only
the right
guy-
call.
Just remember, he's the guy, not the other guy on this team. He's the guy that had the 37-point quarter once upon a
I'll
time.
still take the other guy.
Oh, yeah, you have to take the other guy. The other guy's the greatest shooter in the history of the world.
Hey,
But-
Gary, do you think Bob slept at all that night when he turned
No.
in his ballot?
No.
Do you think he's? My guess is Bob's in bed, and you can just see the visual of Bob tossing and turning, and probably getting up and looking at his list and checking it again. And his wife's probably yelling at him. Bob's still looking at his list.
Now, I got the list in front of me, guys, and the I told you I did write this yesterday that I made a big boo-boo.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
I made a big
Wow.
boo-boo. I forgot. I thought I did my homework. I researched. I went over and over and over until I was confident that I had it right. I forgot Bob McAdoo.
Poor
And
Bob
I
McAdoo.
lived through Bob McAdoo as much as any visiting writer ever lived through Bob McAdoo. Believe me, because he was up against Cowens, and I was Cowens'
Sure.
Bobo. I'll be honest. I love Dave Cowens, and the first time they ever played against each other, I predicted that Cowens would kick his ass because he would beat him. I said he was too strong for him. McAdoo got like 45. The Celtics won in overtime, And I said, "Oh, oops,"
I
Hey,
love
What's
it.
wrong about this guy?
So,
Right.
but I knew he would make it. I felt he would make it, and he did. So I don't feel bad. I just want to tell you, I wrote a thing called tough omissions.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my tough omissions. For myself. Here's some of the ones that I left out, and you'll love my first one that I left out because I think he's empty calories. Okay, Carmelo Anthony,
Very true. Very
Manu
very true.
Ginobili, who I think is worthy. Bill Sharman, Vince Carter. We can have that discussion. I knew he'd never come close to making it, but I love him. You know how much I love Bo Cheeks. Dennis Johnson. Here's one you'll be surprised that I didn't vote for, and this one hurt me. Earl Monroe,
No.
Artis Gilmore,
The A-train,
Anthony
yeah.
Davis. I didn't vote for him, but I gave it great thought. Lenny Wilkins, it broke my heart. Jack Sikma, not close. Marcus Johnson, not close. Sidney Moncrief, not close. Dan Issel. I did vote for him, though. What am I talking about? Okay. Grant Hill. There's one a lot of people,
Yeah, health. I mean, Grant Hill would have been on there
Right.
a lock if he had stayed healthy.
Yeah. So there's some I didn't vote for. It's hard, guys. It was fun. It was honored to do it. It was fun.
Wish they had done. I think it would have made it even more. You would have had more discussion and interaction if you had had an order, because everybody wants to know that top 10. Everybody
know.
wants to know how people rank that top
Well, the
10.
first thing we want to know is who are the two that tied for 75 and 76?
Yeah.
I was going to say, here's what did you think? Did you see the composition of the voting body?
I looked at it quickly. Yeah, I looked
Did
at
you
it. It was
see it,
all
Gary?
over the place.
No, I did not.
Well, the voting body is interesting because it includes
Players.
players,
Yeah.
past and present, females included. Carol Blazkowski was a voter. Becky Hammond is a voter. Nancy Lieberman is a voter. But here's one. You tell me. Giannis is a voter. Now, what does Giannis know? What did he possibly know
Good.
about anything prior to 2000?
My guess is, Bob, somebody else filled it out for
Oh,
him.
like SIDs filling out the coach's ballot
Exactly.
on the poll.
That's where they get it wrong, Bob. That's where they get it wrong, is they expand it too much instead of keeping it to like 30 people that actually have watched enough, you obviously being one of them, but could you find 25 or 30 other, whether it's former players, media people, and you get, a cross section of them.
That's
Yeah,
the
that's what
50th
they
was
should
a
have done.
restricted voting body of that nature. It was it included. It didn't include so many players.
Right.
And by the way, they're very dubious, sources, as you well know, oftentimes, but there's a lot of, I'm looking at that Barkley, Barry, Bing, these were all voters.
Well, at least
Curry-
those guys,
Curry's a voter.
at least they've seen
Sure. I
the
like
older
that.
and the new. I'm okay with that. Giannis is a joke. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's get to some other things here, guys, because
Okay.
I mean, Bob obviously stayed up for more than one night. Jeff, I think doing that. But there's a couple of things. I want to get to Carmelo real quick because we hit a nerve with Bob, and then Jeff, I know you want to get to the Warriors. Carmelo, 19 seasons in, I'll start with Jeff. Has he redefined himself a little bit? Because I'm with Bob in that Carmelo Anthony to me is one of the biggest busts ever in the NBA. He was a great college player, had that great run at Syracuse, and I thought he was going to be phenomenal as a pro. And when he went to the Knicks after having some success with the Nuggets, I thought this is going to be really good. Sort of redefined himself as like an elder statesman.
Yes.
Well, I think as you get older and as he's accepted being a role guy the last couple of years, I think people have a lot more respect for him. I always have respect for Carmelo, the person. I did. You know, I broke his commitment. I remember I was at Fenway Park when I broke the fact that Carmelo Anthony committed to Syracuse. Somebody called me on that one. So, and I've been around Carmelo enough to know, like off the court, Carmelo is super likable. He really is. On the court, no, he wasn't that likable because he was a black hole. He was an absolute black hole. And his game was, you know, although you could say like Bernard King was kind of a black hole too, wasn't he? I mean, Bernard, obviously I'm not saying Carmelo, I don't think he was
somehow. It's funny. The game, you know, the game is the game. The game has an essence that eludes evaluation and analysis. Sometimes you have a feel about people. You know, I never once thought about King in those terms. Seemed like his points mattered. It always, some guys are empty. I call them empty calories. There are guys like that. They're empty calorie points. There are some guys who score 16, they feel like 50. There's some guys who score 50, they feel like 10. I mean, it's just the way it is. And Carmelo, when I was on my middle of my evaluation of him, I think his greatest contribution ever was for the Olympic team, because that's where he was useful. They were in trouble against Spain. They say he goes in, he drills 4 straight jumpers and rights the ship. And now you bring him back and sit down. Thank you very much, Carmelo. Now you sit here and enjoy, you know, and have a good seat and watch the rest of the game. Yeah, and what he's doing now, he's a wonderful adjunct to the Lakers. He wasn't in, you know, what, he had 27 the other night off the bench. He, you know, and Jeff knows how long he resisted. You know, he was adamant publicly that he had to be a starter. And he's finally at this age, he's a all-time leading NBA scorer. I find out right now. He became number 9 last night.
Yeah, number 9. Yeah.
All right, but he made it, so they don't have to worry about what Bob Ryan thinks.
Jeff, just some quick thoughts on the Warriors before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I just think they're super intriguing right now. You know, gotten off to a pretty good start. They still don't have Clay back, number 77. At least that's what Draymond and Steph made him a jersey that said he was number 77 on the list of top 75. And
that's cool.
Clay's actually shown his personality a lot more over the last few years. But I just feel like, hey, if you can get Clay back healthy by March, he's going to come back before that, but you need him at like closer to 100% by March. And Clay's game, well, on the defensive end, you know, it's important he regains some of that athleticism, but you know, his game is built on skill and up here for the most part. And if you can get Clay back at 90% of what he was prior by the playoffs of this year, you put him with Steph, you put him with Draymond, and Wiggins becomes your number 4, and you get James Wiseman back, who, by the way, guys, is exactly what that group would need. Mm-hmm. You know, a rim runner, a defensive presence. He can run the court. Nobody will pay attention to him offensively at all. Why can't that team, if they're healthy, win another one?
I guess I have to start paying attention to Jordan Poole, huh?
Yeah, Jordan Poole's he could score it.
Huh?
He could really score it, and you put him off the bench. And I don't know. I just feel like people are going to sleep on this Warriors team, and they're going to add another level of intrigue, layer of intrigue to this season. Yeah. When there's going to be a lot of it, because there is probably more parity overall than I think we've seen in a while.
It's wide open, fellas.
Yeah.
It's
it
wide
really
open.
I mean, there's some awful teams, but there's a lot of like good teams. I mean, Milwaukee's not a great team. The Lakers aren't a great team. Brooklyn, I don't know if you guys saw this stupid, deal that happened outside.
Of course.
Of the Nets game. Unbelievable. These guys protesting. We're with Kyrie. Thanks, Kyrie. Thanks, Kyrie.
Right. Well,
we
I mean,
go.
Brooklyn should be a great team, but then, my point is like and these are things we'll talk about, I think, as the season progresses. But when you see the Knicks still play well, or you see Ja Morant who's lighting it up, or you see all these other teams, it's like, yeah, okay, if the Lakers and the Nets are 100% and totally focused, they should win, but they're not.
Right.
So there are all these other players now who are coming out of the woodwork, and we're going wide. So that's when I say wide open, obviously there's a lot of bad teams still, but it's not just down to 2 teams anymore, in my opinion.
I just want to, this is apropos of absolutely nothing that we're talking about, but we accept that it involves a player that on a team that we were just talking about, James Harden. As Jeff well knows, I love box scores and I love statistics, and the course of the research that I was doing for the voting, Dolph Schayes, who I always assumed was the only player of any consequence, certainly in the history of the game, who's at career totals more free throws made than field goals made. Wow. He's the only guy in the Hall of Fame with that distinction. Guess who? At this point in time, at least as of last night, it was very close, but it was also in that category. James Harden. James Harden has made more career free throws than field goals. It just speaks, and in both cases, it just speaks to the nature of their game in a way that is just unlike everybody else,
Well,
so
he changed, if he could stay healthy, he changed my mind on him last year when he became.
Well, he fooled me too. Let's pay me my hand. I said, "Whoa, really?" So
when he became a team guy, I said, "Okay,
Yep.
I'm in." Gentlemen, it's a pleasure. We'll do it again next week. The Goodman Ryan Pod, Tangway, just along for the ride. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
NBA, some college, a little bit of everything.
What can I say? But it wasn't going to happen here with him. I was okay with it.